Welcome back, and thank you very much, Jalo Safian, for that compliment. You post, Eric, you're looking good. Well, I always say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but the shirt that I'm wearing is by Kofi Ansah, so I think it's a combination of Kofi Ansah and you, or the beauty that lies in your eye. And I'd like to thank you very much for that compliment once again, Jalo Safian. I'm going to be looking at the beauty of bringing up children, if you want beautiful results or beautiful outcomes, that is. And very often we seem to go between extreme abuse and then extreme neglect. So I've got a psychologist and a sociologist in the studio with me. Michelle Kanga will take all your psychological questions, and Barbara Amigavi will address the social ones. So let's say that we split them between abuse and neglect. Abuse to the psychologist, neglect to the sociologist. And I'm sure that you'll have more questions than I do. I am thinking that we should adopt a motto of spoiling the rod and sparing the child, being more gentle, more considerate of the needs, behaviors, and outcomes for and of our children. What do you think? Join my conversation on abuse, neglect, and child development with Michelle Kanga and Barbara Amigavi. Good morning and welcome to Sunrise.
Good morning.
Ladies, how are you feeling this morning?
Good.
Nice big smiles. Okay, now I just want us to start with this thing, and this question goes to you, Michelle. At what age do children recognize or know or feel that they are either being neglected or abused? Because we often think that when a child is born up to the age of 1, 2, 3, they think differently or feel differently than we do. So at what age do children actually recognize that they are being neglected or that they are being abused, verbally or physically?
I would say at the first age of birth, that is, let's say from 0 to about 18 months, the child can detect that I'm being neglected. The child can detect that, oh, something is not right. Why is my mother or my caregiver acting this way towards me? Why am I not getting that affection? The child might not be able to explain or understand in the way I'm saying, but the child feels that something is missing in his or her life. So as early as at birth, the child can detect that.
Interesting. And Barbara, is there a way for us to measure socially neglect and abuse? Is there a way that we can actually measure scientifically neglect and abuse in its various forms and the effect that it can have or does have on the development of a child?
Abuse, as we say, it's a form of it's causing harm or maltreating somebody intentionally or unintentionally. So sometimes you're not even aware, so you can't measure when you are being abusive or not.
You have good intentions, you think you are disciplining, but you're actually abusing.
Exactly. So when it comes to neglect, we have different types of abuse. We have physical abuse, emotional abuse, psychological, and neglect. And neglect is a part that people don't really pay attention to. It is failure to give a child care or love, or something that the child needs to grow up. Probably the child is of school age, and you are not sending the child to school. It's a form of neglect, not withholding love from that child. And even when the child is in danger, somebody is coming to beat the child, and then you go like, oh, beat him or do this. You are supposed to protect him. So it's a form of neglect that people are not really aware of. It's a form of abuse. So neglect is also a form of abuse.
Now, at what point does abuse or neglect become measurably detrimental or bad to the development of a child? How long and at what frequency would you say it has to occur, or does it occur before you can actually see results, Michelle?
I would say as often as possible. For example, if daily you are saying something negative or you are humiliating the child.
When you say saying something negative or humiliating, can you give me examples? I mean, everyday examples, common examples.
To go like, you would never amount to anything, or you are good for nothing, you're useless.
Bad girl, bad boy, foolish girl, foolish boy.
So if the child hears that constantly for, let's say, even for as much as 2 months, that could have an diverse effect on the child.
It sinks into their
heads, yeah.
And they actually become that.
Yeah. They actually believe it. Or some of them become withdrawn because they feel that they are the reason why their parents are acting that way. They blame themselves for it. So anytime they find themselves in a situation like that, they keep on blaming themselves. So that you find out that these children don't really interact with other children. They're always to themselves because they are afraid of being rejected or being treated the way they are being treated at home.
We use discipline and punishment interchangeably. Very often I've noted though, when people want to say punishment, they say discipline. Usually not the other way around. What are your thoughts on that? What's the difference between discipline and punishment, and how do they relate to each other?
Punishment is causing harm or abuse, it's mostly causing harm. And then discipline is giving guidance. So as form of guidance, if probably doing something that is not right, the punishment part is caning the person, and the discipline part is sitting the person down and giving the person direction that next time don't do this, next time don't do that. When you do this, it affects me this way. It makes me very sad. People talk about you that they are not behaving well, and it affects me. It makes me very sad that why is my child behaving like this? And the punishment form is coming in with a cane or kneeling down,
abuse,
yes,
or
causing harm
verbally or physically,
using the belts, maybe slapping.
That's the abusive
pinching,
part.
Yes, that is the punishment, abusive part of
the
it.
discipline is actually giving gentle advice and direction,
guidance,
explanation, guidance, and so on and so forth. Now, why is it that we so often confuse these two, Michelle? Why do you think we might be confusing them so often? We often, talk about stiff discipline, stern discipline.
I think it has to do with the society, because that is what we've been taught. So that's what we've learned, that if a child does something wrong, you discipline, you cane the child.
You beat the child.
Yes.
And that's supposed to be a way of advising them.
But the thing is, when you beat the child, you're actually humiliating the child. You're actually making the child more aggressive. Because the child will realize that, okay, anytime I do something wrong, I get the attention I need from my parents. So the child will keep on doing that thing in different degrees or in different situations just to get the parents' attention. I would rather advise that you use reinforcement. It's just, for example, if the child has done something wrong and he enjoys playing video games, you take that from the child and explain to him that I'm taking this from you for, let's say, the next 2 weeks because you have done this thing and I think it's unacceptable that you have done that. Don't discipline a child out of anger.
Okay.
Never do that. Even if you do,
never respond when you're angry or upset.
You have to calm down
afraid.
first. Afraid. You need to calm down first. Then you speak to the child. If you do it out of anger, find time, sit the child down, and apologize to the child. It doesn't take anything.
Apologize to the child. Now this brings us right to two interesting questions. I suppose one will be for you, Michelle, and another one for you, Barbara. Michelle, your question is from Nafia to Suleimana, and she's asking, I want to know if giving a child too much consideration can have a negative impact on the child's development. Too much consideration spoiling the child. And your question, Barbara, is from Felix Ayi. Would you think that the social welfare is living up to expectations in relationship to the Children's Act? So first with you, Michelle, can giving your child too much consideration, and I suppose that means sort of like kind, soft, gentle attention, result in a negative outcome in terms of the child's character or development?
Yes. Well, there's a saying that too much of everything is bad. So you have to give the child that attention in moderation. Because if you do it too much, what will happen is that the child will expect others to do the same. Or the child will become pompous, thinking that whatever I do, I can get whatever I want. Because my parents have been giving me everything I need. So in as much as you're giving the child attention, you need to do that in moderation. There are instances where you have to teach the child that you don't always get the attention or the applause or the audience that you want. There are times that you can't get the things you want.
Interesting. And the other question was from our other viewer, and that's Felix. He's asking about whether you think that social welfare in Ghana is living up to the standards that are set by the Children's Act.
In a way, not too much, because in the first place, educating people on the types of abuse and how they affect the children and even the society as a whole is not being done. We hardly really hear of program, but this program, for instance, could be with social welfare department so that we collaborate and come out with something. The education is not there. So there are a lot of instances of child abuse, but we hear it on TV. The TV stations are doing well. They go around, they capture it, but what do we see? The also issue, what came out of it? We don't really see them acting. So I think the education part is not being done well.
We need more education.
Yes.
Apologize to the child. With a big question mark is a post from Derek Kojo Comfort. He says, this is GH. it doesn't happen. And he's directing this at me. I'm passing it to you, Michelle, and to you, Barbara. It just doesn't happen.
Apologizing doesn't mean sorry, but explaining the child why you are punishing the child it could be a form of apology. I did this to you. I punished you because I made you sweep the room, because you have dirtied the room. You have done this. Giving explanations, because there are so many times when we're kids, you are punished and nobody tells you anything of why this punishment was meted out to you. So explaining it, because sometimes fine, the adult in our society, the adult is always right. But there are sometimes that adult does something and you go like, so that is why last time I spoke about participation, where the child can come to you and say, Mommy, you did this, I didn't understand, can you explain? And then if you also think that what you did is not good, you apologize, the parent. And then in that way, you teach the child how to apologize anytime somebody offends him or her.
A formal defense against an accusation, that's what I see as a definition of apology on my dictionary page. Comes from two Greek words. Apologia, a speech in one's own defense. Apo from away, and logia, as in logic, thinking. So don't think that it means that you are in any way lowering or denigrating your standard or your authority if you choose to explain your action to someone who is accusing you of treating them wrongly, especially your very own child. Now, Michelle, a growing body of evidence seems to indicate that abuse in particular can and does affect brain performance, and in both psychological and emotional ways, as well as behavior. Do you see this happening in Ghana a lot? Can we say that we are not developing, because we always talk about development in the way that we might want to, as a result of our educational, and upbringing methods in our homes from an early age?
Yes, it is happening in Ghana. It's just that we've turned the blind eye to it. We just say to ourselves, oh, this only happens in foreign countries, but it's happening here. Because let's look at it. If really punishing a child was the way to instill discipline in a child, then we should have a lot of disciplined people in Ghana. But that is not the case.
When you look at adults, when you look at me and you look at Barbara, just by our behavior, can you tell whether we were abused, neglected as children or not? If you just studied us for a little while,
yes,
you could probably tell as a psychologist that this person got too much attention, or this person got too little attention. This person was actually abused a lot in their childhood, and that's why they behave a certain way. That's why they talk a certain way. That's why they think a certain way. Now, how easy is it to change that in adulthood?
It's kind of difficult. It's going to be really difficult, because first and foremost, a person has to be willing to seek help and to listen to you. If the person is not willing, there's not much you can do. If the person denies that I've actually been abused, or my behavior is because of this thing that happened as a result of childhood, because the thing that happens is once a person is abused often, the person suppresses all the emotions. So let's say if an event should occur where it reminds the person of something that happened in childhood, you find out the person bursts out. All the feelings of, let's say, 10 years, 12 years, 20 years come pouring out on an innocent person. So that is why it's important that the person seeks help as early as possible. That is why we are doing this, to educate the public that the least thing that you say and you think that is not important is actually very important, because it has a diverse effect on a child.
Okay, now people keep bringing up an alleged Bible quotations without the verse and the book. And here's one from Supuza Agri. Says the Bible says, when you spare the rod, you spoil the child. I would love to see that in quotes. Spare the rod, spoil the child. Supuza Agri chapter 2, verse 17, for example. If Supuza, you have contributed to the Bible, well, congratulations to you. If not, I would really love to be corrected and to be educated as to where that quote is. And I'm talking about the quote, not anyone's interpretation of it. Give me the quote that says spare the rod and spoil the child. And if you can find it in the Bible, well, then look for it on the internet. You'll be surprised at where that phrase actually comes from and what it is associated with. Domestic violence. Simple and short. Is honey good for a child? Does a baby? Asks Boga Ali Hashim. I don't know if either of you is a nutritionist. In GH Apology, does train, the cane rules. Our local and foreign movies on the screens aren't portraying the knowledge that we are sharing. What can be done about that? Really nice question about the media, what we choose to watch and listen to, and what it teaches us.
Let me comment on one thing that's from research. Spare the rod and spoil the child is not biblical.
It's not a biblical code. I
Not
know
at
that.
all.
It's a code from an ancient treaty that actually defends domestic violence, beating your spouse, your wife.
So we shouldn't defend ourselves with that.
So I'd love to hear that quote. I don't want an interpretation of it. I want the quote itself. So if you can find that phrase, spare the rod and spoil the child, then please share it with me and then we can discuss it. Let's see, what else is there? This thing about parents neglecting children because of their priorities. They put work above family or children, and this is something that Evans Amo is sharing with us. Some of these children are sometimes left in the care of domestic workers or house helpers, and this results in children growing attached to other people who show them the least of care and love, and also impart questionable values in them, leading to adherence to influence these people. Now, is this good or bad, and what do you think that parents should do either way? So I think you can both contribute to this
Neglect
comment by Evans Amo.
it affects the academic performance of the child in the sense that when the child comes home, there's nobody to supervise him or her on the homework, so he doesn't perform well. And then parents are not there to even look through their books and see which area or subjects they are not doing so well. And then sometimes it leads to teenage pregnancy. Neglect. The mother is not there or the father is not there to give the child much attention or support that the child needs. So the child maybe finds that love in, it could be a gate man, a houseboy, or a boyfriend. And this could lead to teenage pregnancy. This is all form of neglect. And then the child also shows behavior disorders, can start stealing, can start doing things just to catch your attention. So all these things, these days you can say maybe the child went to misbehave in school. The teacher will bring complaints, a lot of complaints. All this is a matter of neglect. The parents don't have time to interact with their children, to study them and tell where they are going wrong.
Okay, to add to what Barbara has said, I think that the fundamental problem or issue here is that most people are not ready to be parents. And because of the pressure they are receiving from society, they go ahead and have children. And being unprepared for something causes a lot of confusion. So if you leave your child in the care of someone else, you are not there to detect whether whatever the person is telling the child or whatever training the person is giving the child is what you would want to do. So if the person doesn't really understand certain things and is teaching your child what he or she has learnt, it could be from the streets, when the person was being raised, it would have an adverse effect on the child. So as parents, we need to be very careful when we are raising our children. Even if you're working 17 hours a day, if you come back home, even before you get down from your car, try to distress yourself. At least drink some water. Listen to something soothing. So when you come out of the car, if your children are asleep, spend some time with them in bed. That is comforting, just to let a child know that, oh, my parent is very busy, but yet still the person has time for me. That these are the little things that we can do to help our children. It doesn't have to be anything massive. I'm not saying that don't go out there and work to provide for your children, but don't focus so much on giving them financial support that you neglect the very important one, which is the emotional aspect of it.
And anytime this quotation comes up, there is a heated response. Everybody, go to Proverbs 13:24. Okay, here is it. He that spareth his rod hateth his son. It doesn't say you should hate anyone. It says he that spareth his rod hateth his son, but he that loveth him, you have to read the entire verse, he that loveth him chasteneth him betimes. Now this is old English, it was translated from Hebrew. Many people would say that it was even mistranslated, but what does it mean to chasten or to chastise someone? It means to scold, to reprimand, to admonish, to castigate, to lecture, to give someone a piece of one's mind, even a tongue lashing, and so on and so forth. It does not mean to hit or beat anyone. And I think that this conversation will go on and on and on and on. And well, my version is spoil the rod and spare your child. Chasten him. Don't beat him or her. Thank you very much, Barbara and Michelle. I hope you will come back again and again and again. And well, sometimes people take things literally, and old habits die hard, but knowledge is a wonderful thing, and I'd like to thank you for sharing your knowledge with me and with our guests.
Let me add one thing, that taking time to even come to our institute to come for such trainings will help you in upbringing of your children who are future leaders. So come to the Institute of Human Rights and Social Policy and then receive some education to help all of us bring up our children in a good way. Thank you.